Hi everyone, warm welcome to the channel once again. Peter here, you're watching Thailand-Bound. If it's your first time to the channel, I talk about all things Thailand, and today, as always on a Saturday, I'll be reading out 3 viewer stories. Just before I start on this, just a quick reminder, I'm off to Thailand very soon. I've got my Thailand pass. I'm booked into the hotel that I have to book into for a night. Hopefully everything will go well. By the time you guys are reading this story, or listening to this story I should say, I'll have about 4 days, 5 days until I get on the aircraft, so looking forward to that. And to the people who asked me, will I still be telling the stories from Thailand? I've actually prepared 3 lots, because I'm there for 3 weeks. I've prepared 3 lots of stories to put out on a Saturday, but they're a watered down version. They're only 10 minutes long, but something's better than nothing, isn't it? Okay, so 3 great stories today, as always. The first 2 are quite lengthy. The last one is very short, and in fact, I received it just this morning. One other thing I'd like to say, guys, I'm getting desperately low of stories now. That's why the one that I received today has already been read out. If you've got a story and you've been sitting on it, please send it to me, and one Saturday you could be sitting there listening to it like today. Okay, let's crack on with these 3, and here's the first of 3.
สวัสดีค่ะ
In 2007, me and my friend Jim decided to take a trip to Thailand after sharing some stories with him of a previous trips I have made with a mutual friend. We left Melbourne and headed straight to Bangkok, and I thought what better place to blow his mind than to take him straight to Nana Plaza, as I had so much fun the last time I visited the plaza. I decided to go again and check into the Nana Hotel. At that time, it was in a pretty sad state of affairs, but it's such a great location opposite Nana Plaza, we could literally stumble across the road if we got too drunk, and it was close by if we decided to bring some company back, as we only intended to spend one night. It was perfect. I really wanted to see my friend's reaction when we walk into Nana Plaza, because when I first came here, I was blown away. Needless to say, his reaction was the same as mine had been, standing there stunned. I could almost see his eyes popping out of his head as the sounds of loud competing music and the screams, "Hello, hello, handsome man," and ladies literally pulling at our arms to drag us into their bar. It certainly makes you feel like you've landed on another planet, not to mention an incredible and unbelievable boost to your ego. So much to take in. We literally couldn't take the beaming smiles off our faces, and the beer was so frosty cold. It was like all our dreams had come true at once. We had a few drinks and decided we should go for a wander and see what else is about. We went from bar to bar and we started talking to this beautiful woman. I think me and my friend are pretty particular. We like the glamours, movie star type girls. Who doesn't? As we were getting more and more drunk, the conversation was really flowing and everything became a blur of noises as we started to really relax. My friend said quietly, "I think I really like her. She's an absolute glamour girl." I agreed, but at that moment, I pulled him aside and said, "Hey, I want you to think about this for a second." He looked at me puzzled. "How many women have you actually met in your life that look this perfect? I mean, nothing was out of place, tall and sexy, perfect in every way." He thought about it for a second, then we really got into the stress mode, as we had been told about Thailand having a big population of ladyboys and that they were so stunning they could fool any man. These days I can spot a ladyboy a mile away, but as relative rookies, I thought best not to have a confrontation later on in our room. That's another story. So my friend politely excused himself and we decided to play it safe. So with a big laugh, we decided best we find someone 5'0" with small feet, just to be safe. After our big night, we had breakfast downstairs at the Nana Hotel. I think they've turned it into a bar these days. We headed off to look around Bangkok in the daylight and check out this crazy Jekyll and Hyde place. We decided over breakfast that we wanted to go to Phuket first, then we might go to Pattaya after that, as I'd already done a Pattaya trip on my last trip to Thailand. The last time I came to Thailand, there was really no need to book anything solid, as there's always accommodation to be had anywhere. It's great to be able to make on-the-spot changes to go with our mood. Proof of this was landing in Bangkok on Christmas Eve on my last trip here. The light of day was different, sort of crazy. Cars, smoke, food, cooking smells, scooters zooming past and horns beeping. Honestly, it makes you feel like you're living in a breathing monster after coming from Australia. We decided to have a morning beer and walked into a bar. A beautiful woman sat next to me and the bar owner suggested I go with her. This woman was to die for. However, even though she said she was 23, there's no way I was going to do anything stupid in another country. My gut feeling was she was younger, so we finished our drinks and politely stepped out. Not knowing better, and in hindsight, not such a bad thing. We approached a tuk-tuk taxi. Those three-wheeled things looked so fun, so we asked him to take us around to a few shops and find us a travel agent. After a few stops, including a suit shop, a massage shop, this giant pink building with ladies behind glass sitting on carpeted steps with big numbered buttons pinned to their dresses. Again, another story. We finally ended up at the travel agent. It looked pretty dodgy, but we sat down and chatted about flights and accommodation to Phuket. The travel agent suggested a few things after we outlined our priorities, such as being close to the beach, close to the action, and somewhere decent, as we were going to be there for the next week. He showed us a few pictures and they all looked great, so we booked up on the spot. I asked him who we were flying with, as I'm into aviation and was interested in what aircraft we were going on. He couldn't tell me, but he assured me no pom-pam. Very good plane. We got back to Nana Hotel, checked out and took a taxi to the airport. The airline was one to go, and lo and behold, I see an aircraft, an old McDonnell Douglas MD-11. I hope this was not the one taking us to Phuket. My friend was laughing as I clenched a seat in this old banger as we hit some turbulence coming into Phuket. As a side note, this exact aircraft crashed 3 months later on landing into Phuket. After landing, I was as white as a ghost. I tell my friend we've been done here. I bet this hotel is a drive and in the middle of nowhere. The bus was right there at the airport, so we jumped on and arrived at the hotel in Phuket. This hotel looked amazing actually. After a beautiful greeting and a wet cold towel they give you and a welcome drink, things were looking up. As we checked in, a wave of relief hit me. When we walked into our room, it was amazing and even better than the photos. I looked up and took all the bad things I said about the travel agent back. He had really come through here, I said. This must be the best place in Phuket. Spa, bath, beautiful pool, beautiful bed, fantastic. So we headed out to explore the beach, had a few drinks and a big dinner and come home to reset up. The next morning we got up and ate breakfast in the lobby. My friend was a pork butcher and he'd been lugging around his own bacon for the last 2 days. I told him Thailand doesn't do bacon that well, so we showed the chef how we wanted our breakfast made every day and he did not disappoint. As we were happily eating breakfast, I looked around at the other visiting guests. I said to my friend, "Have you noticed anything unusual here?" He looked around puzzled and asked what I was talking about. I told him every table only had men on them. He looked around with the guy sitting next to him giving him a very friendly smile and a wave. The penny had dropped. We were in a gay hotel. We went to reception and asked the nice lady and she confirmed that this was all set up for gay travellers. The travel agent must have assumed that we were gay when we walked in together making plans like an old couple. My friend Jim wanted to go to another hotel, but I told him there's no way I'm leaving this one. The staff were so friendly and we just organised our personal in-house chef. Besides, anything else for the money is rubbish in this area. We ventured out and after we popped into a half a dozen hotels, he admitted defeat. He said, "I'm not comfortable with other men looking at him with lustful looks at breakfast." I told him not to be so dramatic and that I had a plan. That night we went out again and did some bar hopping and over some pool he asked me what my plan was. At that moment 2 ladies were walking around with those crazy bikini type skirt dress uniforms with black and white checkers on them like you see at the Formula 1 grid. High heels and super glamorous. I told him let's bar find these lovelies and we'll take them and have some fun and laughs. In the morning, we would take them down for breakfast and mark our territory as the straight guys. I'm not homophobic, I just wanted others in the hotel to know that we were straight. My friend thought this was a wonderful idea. The girls obviously had civilian clothes and shoes, but I told them they looked great and not to bother changing. They agreed and they were happy to be paraded around at the hotel and at the breakfast bar in the morning. We were getting big uncomfortable stares from the other patrons. Personally, I was worried for a minute we would get kicked out, but the girls were great and you could see they didn't have a worry in the world, so all was good. My friend was happy, and that was the last we spoke of any issues. So there you go, quite a nice story there. Quite funny though, isn't it? I've never, in all the years I've been traveling to Thailand, I've never heard of anybody packing away their own bacon and giving it to the chef for them to cook. But whatever turns you on, I suppose, as they say. Right, we'll jump straight into story number 2. This is another good story. I stumbled across your YouTube channel by accident one day, and I have now become somewhat of a regular, often sitting down and listening to the stories of people's adventures in Thailand. Soon I'll get on your live streams and see what everyone is talking about. I only went to Pattaya once, and my story is in 2 parts. I don't really have a lot of time to write out a story, but I felt it was important because it will help others out, which is why I call it passing on the baton of knowledge. I wish I could have read such stories before I visited Thailand. I will also be reliving fond memories as I write. It was a trip I will never forget. About 25 years ago, my boss at the time used to speak about Pattaya. I remember he used to go to China on a buy-in trip once every year, and a friend he went with had taken him to Pattaya on the way back and introduced him to everything Pattaya had to offer. I never really thought much of it at the time, and I only got a very brief explanation of what happened. The place didn't sound that exciting to me at the time. I had other interests. Fast forward exactly 20 years to about 2016, and I was working in a remote location with this guy that I had befriended, and we got along really well. This guy has now passed away, so it makes our trip extra special, and that will be something I will always have to remember. He said to me one day, let's book a trip to Thailand. Visiting Thailand was not something that had crossed my mind in the past. I mean, it's never been discussed with my friend. I thought about it for a while and I thought, hey, why not? Let's visit Thailand. I wanted to go because my friend had good knowledge of Pattaya, so I shouldn't come unstuck on my first trip. I highly doubt I would have been brave enough to make the trip on my own had I not been with somebody who was familiar with Pattaya. I think the language barrier would have knocked my confidence, but I didn't know it then, but just about everybody in Pattaya speaks very good English anyway, and that includes most of the bar girls. We booked the tickets and accommodation through the internet. It was the first time I've booked accommodation using the internet, as I am not a big traveller. 7 days in Pattaya, staying just off the second road, and 2 days in Bangkok, staying at the Warburg Hotel on Sukhumvit Soi 4. My friend was so excited and reassured me that I was going to love it, and as it happened, I really did love it. We flew to Bangkok and my friend showed me how to negotiate a fixed rate to Pattaya with a taxi driver, and then we were on our way. As we came into Pattaya, I saw my first ever BART bus and couldn't believe school kids were riding to school in the back of an open pickup truck. I also started to see the many scooters with kids in front and back. It was really an experience to see how different everything is. Once we had booked into our hotel, I went straight to the beach road and straight to McDonald's to have a large cappuccino. I can still remember it was 105 baht in 2016. I sat down and I thought this is going to be a cheap holiday, but when I did the maths at 25 baht to $1 Australian, I worked out I had just paid $5 for a large cappuccino, which at that time was more expensive than in Australia. I thought there must be some mistake, but I learnt my very first important lesson. There is 2 currencies in Pattaya, the tourist dollar and the local baht. I only bought 3 coffees the whole time I was in Thailand, and I avoided McDonald's from then on. I found it offensive that in a country where the income can be so low, tourists sit in places that most local people could not afford to eat at. I used to walk through Central Festival and come out the other end because it was easy access to the beach and was air conditioned, but I found the place depressing, being such a fancy and expensive place that only some could afford to buy products in this mall. I then did what anyone could do. I discovered a little lady at a street cart just outside our hotel that made nice meals, and I sought out the local 7-Eleven. Both became my food hangouts. There was a whole variety of street carts in a nearby street, but I just could not bring myself to even try what they had on offer, as they did not look as nice as the one that was just outside of my hotel. Once I had established myself with this lady, I stayed with her for the rest of my trip. My first experience with the local ladies was actually my friend's encounter. One evening, when me and my friend were walking along the beach road, I was walking behind him, and this girl came up from behind my friend and took his arm and started to walk beside him, chatting as they went along. At the time, I can remember being offended because she was older and I didn't think she was all that attractive, and the fact that she had just come up and approached us in this way was not polite. I thought, I don't want to be put into a similar situation. My friend was more than 10 years older than me, so I guess he was looking through different eyes. I sort of didn't really even want to talk to her, so I just kept walking along and looking at all the sights along the beach road. As it turned out, this girl worked her magic on my friend, and before I knew it, he had come to an arrangement with her to hang out with her for the entire week. I felt compelled to write this story because I assumed wrongly. I didn't want regular company, and so I only hung out with girls on the odd night and actually hung around with my friend and his new girl, which they did not mind, and she actually turned out to be a tremendously nice person. I fully understand that these girls are working at the end of the day to send money back to their families, but I was very surprised at how nice they can be towards us. They really make you feel welcome. No wonder Pattaya is so popular with guys. I can remember one day she took us up all these back alleys and we ended up in some market that you could never have found unless you lived there. We were in the same shopping area as the local shops and prices were cheap. We stopped in this little shop and had a cold drink, taking a few pictures that we would cherish forever. She also took us to a few local memorials and shrines before taking my friend to an island and the big temple up on the hill. I didn't want to go on these extended trips, and so I stayed behind and chilled out by the pool. My friend was off sightseeing with his new holiday girlfriend while I sat by the pool surfing the internet pretty much as I do at home every day. I guess some people will listen to this and think, what a waste of money going on holiday and surfing the internet all day. But I was happy. I noticed an old man in the pool and a girl who looked to be around 24 or 25 sitting on the edge of the pool. They were paying each other so much attention. I think it was at that point that the penny dropped and I realised why guys get hooked on Pattaya. Having such busy lives, sometimes we don't stop or we don't have the time to spare for such simple encounters. It was really quite remarkable, and I'll never forget how they just had so much time for each other. If you strip away all the complications and assets of modern day life, perhaps this is all that really matters. The end of this story wasn't a train wreck as some viewers are used to, but it did end sadly. My friend was obsessed with this beautiful lady in one of the second road massage parlours, and he couldn't be sure if it was a ladyboy or not. I think the lure of the ladyboy had gotten to him. What basically happened was my friend and this girl he had hooked up with for a week were at dinner together at this outdoor restaurant, and this other girl from the massage parlour walked past our table. My friend just couldn't help himself striking up a conversation with this girl, but the real problem started when the conversation went on for about 40 minutes. I'm not exactly sure if that was the exact time, but I do know while he was talking to this other girl, me and his holiday girlfriend were eating our meal and looking at each other thinking, is this really happening? We were so uncomfortable. He was totally wrapped up in conversation with this other girl and he was completely ignoring the one he had spent the week with. I thought that it might be a brief conversation with his second lady, but after what seemed like an eternity, the girl he had been with got up and stormed off. I followed her outside and I can't remember what I said, but I remember her saying, well, he's paid me anyway. And with that, the girl had been so warm and welcome and was gone into the night. Just like that, I went back to my friend and said, you do realise that these girls have feelings, don't you? He was oblivious to the hurt he had just caused her, and guilt suddenly came across his face. After that, he barely said a word for the rest of the night. I think he was embarrassed thinking about what he had done. It truly was a sad ending, and we wished it could have ended in any other way than how it worked out. I also did two insensitive things that I regret to this day. Pattaya is a place where you almost step out of yourself. It can consume you. I don't drink, but if you're a big drinker or party animal, I can see how Pattaya and the female population can quickly take over your life and your cash. You really must be careful, but I had a great time. Sometimes I think I could just sell everything and move there to retire. I can see why people do. After walking the length of the coconut bar on Beach Road, I had found a girl that had caught my eye, but I was a bit shy to approach her. As we walked back trying to find her in the dark, I noticed her and paused long enough that she approached me. Her name was Yachai, and I ended up spending a night with her and her she then convinced me to make that 2 nights with plans to meet at 4 p.m. the next day outside the hotel. Sometime on the second day, I decided 2 nights wasn't really such a good idea, and so I started thinking how I could break my plans with her. I went down to the outside of the hotel just before PM, hoping she wouldn't show up. Wouldn't you believe it, but at 3:59 and 59 seconds, Yachai come around the corner on her scooter. You could set your watch by her accuracy. I was thinking about how I was going to get out of this situation. Eventually taking her for a walk and offering to pay her for her time, but calling it a day with her. Well, I guess this was my first major Pattaya mistake. It's not like returning a broken toaster, is it? She was so upset that I didn't want to be with her and the money didn't make any difference. I felt really awful. It wasn't like I was going out with another girl, because I ended up just having a few drinks alone and going home to bed. One wise tip: never agree to meet a girl on multiple nights unless you are sure you want to stay with that same girl. I guess they all try it, but I learnt the hard way. I did go out with Yachai one other night later on, but I know she was still angry with me. I took her Facebook details, but as I never returned to Thailand, I never spoke to her again. She was a nice girl, and you could easily fall for one of these girls. They all have a very nice nature about them. A bar-girl relationship may end up as a train wreck, and sometimes it doesn't, but I can see why guys do it anyway. Another experience which I really feel bad for to this day is a night we went to Walking Street. I went with my friend and his friend. The second friend knew exactly what bars to go to and how long to stay. In fact, he knew every trick in the book, and this is the value of having someone to pass on their knowledge to a first-time visitor to Pattaya. As the night wore on, I got progressively more intoxicated until we ended up at our last bar, where this tiny and beautiful girl came up and sat next to me. It was decided she would return with me to the hotel, and I could not have been happier. We went and had a quick bite to eat before turning up at the hotel for what I thought was going to be the best night of my trip. For those that don't know, the hotel reception will always take the girl's identity card and keep it until morning. This is for the safety of the guest as well as the girl, and only returning the girl's ID to them once you have said all is well. I had no idea this system existed, but it was really reassuring and acts like insurance. Anyway, this night we get to reception, and this beautiful girl I had with me has no identity card on her. I look at the reception staff and they told me that she could stay with me, but if there are any problems, you are on your own and we cannot be responsible. I might have had a bit too much alcohol in me, but I wasn't so drunk that I was going to let my guard down. I think we actually got into the elevator before I worked out that I must be going to get scammed here. How could a girl working in this industry not know that you need to have your identity card to get into the hotels? She looked so innocent, but I just couldn't take a chance, so we went back down to reception. She offered to take me back to her place, to which I agreed to, but I already felt that she had deceived me by turning up at the hotel without an ID card. We ended up walking miles up Second Road in the direction of Jumtien Beach. I think we ended up under a freeway underpass. I just kept thinking she is planning to scam me, and how on earth could someone so beautiful and innocent do such a thing? We eventually arrived at her room. However, as soon as she went inside, I turned and ran most of the way back to my hotel and just went to bed. I don't even remember which bar we went in, so I couldn't go back and make things right. I did feel bad that it was her only way of making an income, and she might not have scammed me after all. She didn't make any money, but I can't help feeling like she should have known she would need her identity card. Was it an honest oversight, or was she going to steal stuff out of my room? Near to the end of our time in Pattaya, me and my friend who had offended the girl he should have been with for a week decided to go to the beach road and try to find a couple of girls to spend some time with. I ended up finding and talking to Yachai, and my friend was still trying to work out if the girl in the massage parlour was a ladyboy or not. Yachai played this spotting competition and pointed to this beautiful girl and asked, "Is that a ladyboy?" I said, "No way." And she said, "Yes, it is." I didn't believe her, so we called this girl across and she confirmed that she was in fact a ladyboy. The girl confirmed that they identify as women and feel like women, but they aren't always allowed or can't afford to have surgery to make them that way. I kind of felt sorry for them actually. It may have been dark, but there is just no way to believe that such a beautiful girl could be a ladyboy. My friend wanted to know about this other girl, so what ended up happening was that Yachai had a friend with her on the beach, so we did a deal. Yachai would come with me and we would walk past the massage parlour and Yachai would see if it was in fact a ladyboy or not. If it was a ladyboy, my friend would take Yachai's friend for the night, but if the girl in the massage parlour was not a ladyboy, my friend would go and ask her out. With that decided, we walked across to Yachai's scooter and she hinted for me to drive. I said no way, and so Yachai drove to the second road. We got off and started walking towards the massage parlour. We were a fair way away when Yachai turned to me and said, "Ladyboy." I asked, "Are you sure?" And we went right past and circled back past a second time, but she was convinced it was a ladyboy. We went back to Yachai's friend and the four of us went back to the hotel. Of course, Yachai was still mad at me, and of course she could have lied about the supposed ladyboy in the massage shop so that my friend would be put off and go back for her friend, which is what he did. The next morning we went to breakfast and afterwards departed Patty with the best memories of our trip ever. I read the stories of how recent events have decimated Pattaya and how there is plans to close part of it down. I am by no means a regular, but it is still sad to see this place change forever. Pattaya has a unique, different vibe to any other place in the world. Anyway, I enjoyed Pattaya and 2 days in Bangkok were also enjoyable. I walked past Nana Plaza several times but never went in. I guess that's for the next time. Okay, the only comment I'd make on this, some guys who have never been to Thailand, they probably wouldn't understand that the girl he said he'd stay with for 2 days, he changed his mind on the second day. He thought it's not, he wanted to sort of play the field as it were, or for whatever reason. He thought, okay, look, if I just pay her what we'd agreed, I can walk away and everything will be hunky-dory, as they say. But it doesn't work like that in Thailand, unfortunately, guys. By saying to that girl, look, here's your money, but I don't want you, she's basically losing face and it would have made her feel terrible. So, you know, what he should have probably done is, you know, instead of just saying, look, I don't want you and here's the money, what he should have done is give her the money and then maybe a little bit later on, maybe after a coffee or something, said, look, I'm really sorry about this, but I've had an urgent phone call and I might call you later. I've got to disappear. But he was new to Thailand, so you can kind of understand why he took that route. Right, straight into our third story now. And as I said, I only received this story this morning. I haven't even really read it through. I've edited it slightly, so let's see how this goes. Very, very short. But as I said at the beginning of the video, I'm running real low on stories, guys. So if you can help me out, send in your experiences. I always change names and you might hear it here one Saturday. Okay, so let me just crack on with this one. I've been going to Thailand for 35 years since my late 20s. I can honestly say I've never had any of the shipwreck problems that the men you share the stories of have had. I have travelled to 131 countries thus far and not drinking. I know people take it lightly, but I believe a world of problems comes from drinking and getting drunk. However, what did happen to me in the past 35 years was once, about 25 years ago, I was totally fooled by thinking a ladyboy I had met in a bar I had gone in for soft drinks is a girl until we were in her room and I noticed that something was not right. I had to edit that a little bit. I had kissed him on the mouth, however, in the bar, but nothing more. Then upon returning to the bar the next night where I met her on the parallel street to Pat Pong, I shared my story with another girl who was sweet enough to reveal to me that she was a ladyboy who had gone all the way with surgery, changing her sex. I was appalled and disgusted and a hard lesson was learnt. The only other problem I had in these 35 years was one girl I had picked up and brought to my hotel who wanted a different price than what we had agreed on, which I refused to pay, and she would not leave the room, which ended up in me paying her a small additional amount to get her out of the room. I did not meet her in a bar, but in front of my hotel on the street. Thai people, as you say, are generally quite nice. I'd say stay sober and do not fool yourself into thinking these girls are in any way with you for any reason other than money, and even if success stories exist in most of the cases, it is still no reason to think you are among those lucky odds. Have your fun and move on. It is simply not worth the heartache and the financial loss. Okay, so a very short one there, as I said. Let me make a comment on this one actually. You know what he was saying, don't go in looking for a girlfriend. In my experience, a lot of guys who hook up with girls and actually fall in love with these kind of girls that work in the bars, they don't go to Thailand and think, right, I'm going to find a serious girlfriend. I'm going to find a wife, something like that. What happens is they go into a bar, they meet a girl, they have a few drinks with her, and they're very, very pleasant guys. These girls are very nice girls to talk to. And what happens, their personalities win them over. The guy might take her out of that bar for a night, and then because he enjoyed her company so much, he'll go back another night, and then maybe a third night. And what happens after the sort of second and third night, a bit of a relationship starts to develop. He starts to have feelings for her, and everything about her being a bar girl kind of goes out the window. And from there, it goes on even further, and it gets to the end of his vacation, and she'll start, she'll say, look, I'll go back to my village. If you send me a small amount of money, I can survive on that. I don't need to work in the bar. I don't want to work in the bar. And of course, if the guy's never been to Thailand before, he might believe that. And of course, he goes back to his country. He starts sending her money every month. And, she'll say, yeah, I'm in my village. I'm with my parents and whatever. And he's totally convinced he's found the right girl. And very often what will happen is that girl will have 4 or 5 sponsors doing the same thing. And in most cases, they're still actually working. They'll still work in the bar because it's never enough. So what I would say, guys, is, try not to wear your heart on your sleeve. Try a little bit stronger when you go there. As I say, I don't like to be derogatory to bar girls. They're all human beings. They've got very, very nice characters, and they are great fun. You guys know I'm married, but I've gone to Thailand with friends. I've sat at the bar and played Connect 4 and, had great evening, especially around Pattaya. We're nothing more than that involved with the girls, but they're just good fun. They've got most of them have got a good personality, and they're good fun to kind of hang out with. But you've got to remember, at the end of the day, they're there for one reason. They're not sitting at that bar playing Connect 4 with you because they've got nothing better to do. They'd rather be at home with their children or parents, not sitting in a bar all night playing these games. They're there for a reason. They need to make money. They adore their families, and especially their mothers, and they'll do what it takes to put food on the table. All right, guys? So don't want to preach. I just want to let you know how things work there. And if you haven't been there before and you remember that should stand you in good stead, as they say, or steam, is it? Okay, guys, that's it for this week. As I say, just another sort of less than a week for me to go to Thailand now. Really looking forward to it. Unless something dramatic happens since recording this video, hopefully I'll be there and be able to actually film something in Thailand rather than sitting here in my home. Okay, guys, thanks for putting up with me for another 30 minutes or so, and I'll catch you all soon.